I want to highlight something that I'd like to remember and encourage you to reflect on and take to heart, because I still don't take it to heart enough, and you and I have not taken it to heart enough to date. And it's this: the journey is ultimately what matters more than the destination. So, what's behind that statement? Well, one of the very interesting paradoxes that I've experienced is depression, anxiety, uncertainty, and feeling shitty after arriving, after accomplishing, after achieving a goal. Right? So what's up with that? But it is a recurring theme. As I find each new plateau of success, whatever I define that as, there's a certain calm, right? There's less adrenaline and less, anxiety about that. But there's also a letdown, an ache, a depression, a tiredness. Just a dull fatigue. And so I don't actually feel better. And I think that some of the unease that I've felt has been the thinking that I would, right? And so today, after, entering a week of unusual security, meaning doing the biggest contract of my 30-year career and, money receding into the distance, not just for my needs, but for the needs of my nonprofit. And it's getting closer to another one of those moments where we've succeeded, we've arrived. And I'm already in anticipation, starting to feel a bit anxious and depressed. And that's, I think, in part because of this expectation that once I get this sorted out, then I will feel good. Once I get this person out of my life, once I get enough sex, once I get enough money, once I pay off my debts, then I will be happy. But that has never happened. If anything, there's a slightly negative ratio, because the excitement around the hope and anticipation transfers to a wide open space of kind of what's next, and a bit of a letdown, meaning reality has not generally lived up to the way it's supposed to feel, or there was the imagined feeling. But on the flip side, moving towards things, having goals, growing, learning, studying, getting ready, and preparing, that has often lived up to its expectation. I've often enjoyed, and just in case you're wondering, I'm out of the tub, and if I put on a shirt right now, it's gonna be wet soon. So I'm just letting my sweat cool off and dry out. But I've often arrived at something, and there's been a letdown, but the moving towards it, the designing is often the most fun. Then there's the steps moving towards it, but then arriving, not as much. And that's been true in relationships. I love relationships that are growing. Once a relationship plateaus, even at a terrific place, I'd often enjoy starting from scratch with somebody new where there's growing, right? So it's the moving towards something, and then, okay, here we are. Can you see how we can make it better, grow more? If someone says they're just happy and content with a good relationship, there's a part of me that doesn't enjoy that as much as a rapidly growing relationship that might be quite uncomfortable, but there's movement. So I was looking at the Costa Rican eco-village and, reflecting on the fact that, because I feel worse this week having reached this big milestone than I did dreaming about reaching this big milestone. And so I was thinking about no, once I get there, once I arrive at the next place, I'm not going to feel any better either. I'm going to feel just as shitty, just as what's next, mild depression about, different things based on recurring thoughts. So yeah, I'm not going to feel incredible, etc. once I reach this next goal. Now, what I find interesting is then where does that leave me? Why continue? Why do it? And that took me to do it because it's a fun thing to make happen, right? It's more fun in a sense to make it happen than to have it. And so that's why to do it, right? And so I found that, first of all, reframing that, because I have been waiting to feel good when I reach this next big milestone. But that's not rational based on past experience and based on, a number of statistics, about how dopamine works and things like that. So I said no, right? I am always going to enjoy dreaming and making things happen. Arriving and having it all so is not going to ever feel like I've arrived, that, all the pain lifts or anything like that. I'm going to have pain, depression, anxiety, irritation, sadness, for the rest of my life, right? For around different, it'll have different themes and different stories at different points. But I can still enjoy the moment. I can still enjoy the day. I can still be with that. And, that now is, as good as it gets. Not on the outside. The outside can continue to scale more and get bigger in this and get bigger in that. But, the inner issues have never been that constrained by the outer, right? I enjoy and prefer looking at fears and worst case scenarios rather than be disappointed or shocked or feel powerless. So that's what I do. And there's a cost for that. Right? Because most of all those worst case scenarios never happen, but I spend time thinking about them. And some of them I avoid by thinking about them, but I still pay the price of, putting my attention there, right? And I tense up my body as a sensitive in situations where there's some friction or conflict with other people so that other people can't shock me out of peace into hyper alert. And again, feel powerless and out of control. So I rev myself up to a point where there's not as much volatility, and I pay a price for that as well. I look at the shadow side of myself and others, and I have a better read on how people are likely to behave as a result of that. But it's also introduces some cynicism, some sadness, some fear, some depression about that. There's a price for having that better read. And there are long-term trends of sociopathic behavior in me and in the culture and in the species, and it's always painful to notice that, right? And that's present in the space, and it's not going to go away if I, hit some big milestone. But if I understand that, and understand that it's about the journey and the opportunity to get from here to the next step and to be with myself in those uncomfortable feelings as well as those comfortable feelings, the painful feelings as well as the pleasurable feelings, the ups and the downs, that will always be there, right? And so the moment of arrival is, less than 1% of a lifetime. But the moments of getting there are 99% of a lifetime, right? And so to put too much focus, I think the arrival is really important as a direction, but not as a destination, right? So I want to reach that point sets me in a certain direction, and that's a very important function because that is the direction that I travel all along the way. There's a nice story, about this impact of context and story, which is that, a traveler was passing through and saw this great building being constructed, and he talked with one of the bricklayers on the building and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, he's laying bricks. And talked with another person, and they said they were drafting, right? Because they seemed to be drawing sketches, and he said they're drawing on bits of paper, right? And another person was digging holes. But he asked the janitor, he said, "What are you doing?" He saw him sweeping, the floor, and he said, "Oh, I'm building a cathedral," right? I'm building a cathedral. The janitor was the only one who owned the vision, right? So every time the janitor swept, right, and the European cathedrals took longer than a human lifetime to construct, right? So they might begin and be completed, 100 to 150 years later. And yet you can tell yourself the story, I'm just going to work doing boring stuff, or you can tell the story that you're part of evolution, that I'm taking what evolution has given me, making the best of it, making small refinements so that what gets passed down is a little bit more refined than what was given to me. I'm part of the great tapestry of life unfolding throughout time and space in my very small area, and that's what I'm up to, day after day after day. And I never arrive. It's an endless journey, right? So I found, for whatever reason, that in the reframing of that, my mood, my physiology went up 300%. And I attribute 100% of that to the removing the pressure off of, because if you think that arriving somewhere is going to feel great and then it doesn't, one of the possible questions is, well, who's to blame? Was I a fool? Did I get it wrong? I didn't do it good enough. Why isn't that happening, right? And if you realize, no, that isn't supposed to happen, that's not what happens most of the time, then that whole recrimination conversation doesn't need to occur. No one's to blame. It's just the way it is. You have a mild letdown as the anticipation goes to completion, and okay, there's a void there, right? And you have to pick something new to aim towards. So I think a third of it is that. And I think another third is feeling pain in my body and telling myself that I've just got to get to this point where once I arrive, then I'm going to feel better, creates anxiety. Like, I've got to get there faster. I've got to get there faster because this is painful and I don't want to feel that pain. And so I've got to arrive. So that's, but if I understand that that's not going to happen, then that kind of addictive hurry drops down and the moment becomes more enjoyable because it's not about, I've got to get to that place where it feels good. It's like, no, it will feel good when I learn to take care of the moment. And so I think the next third of that 300% improvement, as I reframed this focus, was simply the focus on enjoying the journey. Like, here I am tonight, let's enjoy the bath, right? In this moment, let's enjoy the video. It's not going to get any better. And that's not because I'm doing it wrong. And so let's enjoy the moment. So combined, those three shifts in 100% increase in well-being, I'm going from kind of trying to avoid different uncomfortable feelings to understanding, no, those are just part of my daily life and the context that I'm aware of. And I can get a little bit better each day at listening, attuning, and being present for them. So that works for me. Maybe it works for you too. I hope it does, and take care.